everybody, welcome back to another MB Zoomer video. Before we get started, I would like to give you guys an opportunity to comment your opinions on what color scheme you think I should go with for my Sur-Ron. So whatever it is, it's going to be black with another color, obviously because most of it's black already, so that makes a lot less painting work for me. And then I'm kind of leaning towards like black and red, black and orange, black and yellow, black and green, something like that. So still on the fence, but please comment down below if you have a certain opinion on what do you think is the best color for a Sur-Ron. I think black and red is already kind of a popular color, so I would like to sway away from that, as nice as of a color combination as that may be. Anyways, today we're going to be talking about daily maintenance to do on your Sur-Ron. So just stuff you want to check before you go riding on a daily basis to make sure that you're going to be safe. So we're also going to be covering a little bit of chain tensioning stuff as well, just so that you can be informed about that. Alright, so the first thing we're going to go over that you want to check on a regular basis, if not daily, at least on a weekly basis, is going to be your tire pressure. So you'll need a pressure gauge like this one. The ones that work on cars also work on your Sur-Ron. And basically you'll take your cap off, press it onto the valve, and then you're going to check your readout right here. So it looks like about 18 psi to me, which is pretty good. I like to keep my tires around 19 psi, so I'm happy with that. You know, give or take 1 or 2 psi should be just fine. Tire pressure can vary depending on your riding style, your riding terrain, and just how you like the bike. So lower tire pressure will give you more traction, especially for off-road, but you're going to wear your tires out faster, so that's something to take into consideration as well. Next thing we're going to talk about is chain tension. So chain tension is going to be important to check on a regular basis because your chain will stretch out over time, and that's going to give you less tension on the chain. A loose chain is going to be prone to falling off quite often, so I would recommend checking your chain tension on a regular basis. Super simple, super easy to do. All you got to do is kind of check how much play is in that chain. So this I'm comfortable with. Chain tension is something that's going to be also very individualized, just like tire pressure would be. So some people like a looser chain, some people like a tighter chain. If you keep your chain super tight, it's going to wear out faster. So that's something to keep in mind. However, you should have a more efficient transfer of power from the motor to the wheel with a tighter chain. So maybe if you're racing, you would keep your chain very tight. If you're just riding around on the regular, you can keep it a little bit looser, but you don't want it so loose that it's slipping off on you, because that could be pretty catastrophic when you're going 50 miles per hour with a really heavy chain like this. Another thing you want to check with the chain on a regular basis is the master link. So if you've ever put a chain on, you'll know what the master link is, but it's basically just the link that holds it all together. You want to check that you still have the clip on there. I can't see the master link on here right now, but oh, there it is. So we're good on that. Another thing to keep in mind with the chain is your lubrication. So I have an O-ring chain. This keeps most of the lubrication inside of the chain within the O-rings, so you don't have to worry about regularly lubricating it as much. However, if you have a non-O-ring chain, you're going to want to put some chain lube on there on pretty much a weekly basis. Some people would recommend a daily basis, but I think you'd get away with a once per week doing that. The next thing you want to check on a regular basis is going to be the battery power. So I would suggest checking this before you ride anytime. It's easy to do it. You just push the little button on the battery, and I'm seeing 64% on my battery. So knowing the average range I get, your mileage may vary, but I know 64% is going to be at least 10 more miles. So I'll plan my trip accordingly. Another thing down here is you just kind of want to take a quick look at the USB port seal. as well as your battery charging seal. So you don't want these to be open if you're going through any kind of dust, dirt, mud, water, anything like that. You want to make sure it's got a good seal. I've seen 3D printed spring-loaded seals that go on the battery cover, which would probably be a good upgrade if you have frequent issues with this falling off. I run into it sometimes, but not a big enough issue to be a problem for me. Another thing you want to just keep an eye on is that you have both your connections in and that your breaker switch is turned on. And you probably want to lock this down before you go riding. And one of the final things I want to recommend that you do on a daily basis to take care of your bike is to remove the battery overnight if it gets cold where you're at. So where I'm at right now, it frequently gets below freezing overnight, and I want to protect my battery from that. Theoretically, batteries should be totally fine below freezing as long as you're not using them. If you start using them when they're below freezing, you're going to see at the very least a greatly diminished battery capacity, and at the very worst, you're just going to permanently damage the battery. So I recommend just taking your battery inside at night. This will make it so you don't have to worry about damaging your battery from the cold. So typically when I'm done riding for the day, you're supposed to hit the breaker first, and then I'll unplug both connections on the battery, pull it out, and take it in with me. So this isn't something I do in the summers. I just do it in the winter when it's below freezing outside, and it's supposed to protect my battery. Whether or not this makes much of a difference, I don't know, but what I do know is lithium batteries do not perform well when cold. So if your battery's been freezing all night, you're probably going to see a decreased range and a decreased max speed and power if it's been cold, until it warms up at least. One more thing to check on your Sur-Ron is going to be the brakes. So the brakes are going to be one of the most important things for keeping you safe out on the road. It's cool and all to be able to go fast, but if you can't stop, you're going to be screwed. So it's good to do a quick brake test before you go riding. It's easy enough to do. You just want to squeeze your brake, see if you feel pressure. My brakes are pretty spongy. As you can see, it goes very far back. So I'm going to want to bleed my brakes pretty soon. But as long as you have some kind of stopping power, maybe as you're heading out of the driveway, you want to just test out your brakes to see if they're actually going to stop you. And then I would recommend doing both brakes. So those feel good to me. If I was actually going out on a ride right now, I would probably just do a quick stop right before I headed out. So the last thing you want to check on a regular basis is going to be the battery power of any peripheral devices that you have that are not running off of the Sur-Ron battery. So there's a few options for devices that fall into this category. One of them is an alarm system, which I have a previous video on. You can check that out, but that's something that you want to be on an independent battery, since if somebody's stealing your bike, they're probably not going to turn it on right away, so the alarm would not alert. So my alarm has a nice remote on it. Sounds like it's working just fine. So I'll disarm it. I can tell it's got battery power since it's working. I believe it has a low battery alarm. The other thing that I check on a regular basis is this Bluetooth, also camera device on my helmet. So it usually will run out of batteries in about 2 or 3 weeks, depending on how much use it gets. But that's something I like to keep an eye on, just its overall battery power. It just charges up with USB, so you can pretty much do that anywhere. Another thing you want to check, I don't have this, but I've seen many people who do, is if you have a GPS tracker on your bike. Typically those are going to be on their own power source. I have seen them wired into the bike, but most of them out there are going to have their own power source. So that's something you want to check your battery on, and you could do that by simply checking the location of your bike on the phone. If it gives you an updated location, then that means that your batteries are probably fine. Something that's sort of a bonus check is going to be your belt tension. So just like the chain, you're going to want to keep your belt tension right in the perfect spot so that you don't run into issues. Belt that's too loose can slip, and it's probably going to tear up your belt, and you're going to lose a lot of power and torque if you have a slipping belt. So that's something to check on. It's quite difficult to actually check this belt without taking some of the plastic covering off and disassembling the bike. So I'm not going to do that or get into it, but you can kind of feel down the top how tight it is. Mine feels pretty tight, so I haven't touched it since I got the bike, so I'm just going to leave that as is. As long as it's not loose or you're seeing fibers from the belt that are torn up, then your belt should be fine, as long as you're not noticing any other issues. So that's sort of a bonus thing you can check. It's not really always necessary because belts are pretty reliable. They stay in place most of the time, but it's something it couldn't hurt to just take a look at. Check if you're seeing some shredded belt there. If you are, it's time to order a new belt and get on replacing it. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this video. Thank you everybody for watching. I just wanted to give you a decent overview of all the safety critical things that you should check on your bike on a regular basis. So I appreciate your time. Thanks for tuning in. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Comment down below what color scheme you think I should do on my bike, and I hope you have a phenomenal day. Thank you and goodbye.